welcome back to another edition of the Orangebloods Modcast. I'm Jeff Ketchum, and you can see the crew with me: Jason Sukamel, Alex Dunlap, Anwar Richardson. Do us a solid, click on that like button if we say anything in this video that makes you smile, you learn anything, whatever. Even if you dislike it, hit the like button. Basically, that's the message. Subscribe to the channel. We went over 7,000 subscribers earlier this week. Believe me, we greatly appreciate you guys following the page. And if you want to follow it one step deeper, click the bell, ring the bell, get the notifications so that whenever we release new content, and we're always releasing new content, you can know as soon as it happens, when it happens, like when this Modcast drops. Fellas, it's Texas OU week. It feels like a consequential game for a lot of different reasons. Anwar, I'll start with you. 2 days before the game, the most important aspect of this game, you can take this in any direction that you want to, is what?
From an on the field standpoint, I really think it's really about Bijan. It's one of the things. I was watching Lincoln Riley's press conference yesterday, and it seemed to be the thing that seemed to be the focus was getting as many bodies to him as quickly as possible to avoid him getting loose. And so that seems to be, their, one of their main focuses. Now, clearly every team is going to focus it on Bijan, right? But I think from big play perspective and fireworks perspective and limiting that, I think, if Bijan gets off for Texas, obviously that's probably a really good thing for them. I don't know if he's going to get 35 carries again or not, but I think for me, it's Bijan and how does OU handle him and can Sarkisian continue to find ways to, get him yards and keep him active.
Alex, I'll go right to you. Kind of the same question. I mean, take this in any direction that you want to, but on the eve of the game, the thing about this game that stands out to you the most right now is what?
Man, how awesome is this game every year? It's just, it doesn't matter if these teams are good or bad it's the fair. It's like, I get pumped just talking about it, man. It's Red River weekend. It's awesome.
What is your favorite thing from the state fair?
I'm old school, dude. For me, it's just, it's the beer in the wax cup and it's the corny dog. The thing you got to do first is you got to drink a beer. So you have like a cup that you could put the ketchup and the mustard in, right? That way you don't have to be the asshole that has the mustard and the ketchup all on top of your corny dog and you're walking through the crowd like that, getting on people's shirts and stuff. I like to dip it in there neatly and nicely.
So that's an amazing process, Alex.
Yeah.
You could just ask for an extra cup, right?
Yeah,
you'd have to carry 2 cups. So who wants to do that?
And it's also more fun to have to chug a beer before you have the corn dog. But no, I mean, my I guess I don't remember what the exact question was, but it's something about my biggest observation or my biggest thought about.
Just where's your head at with this game?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it stems really off of Anwar's. I'm not even curious about what's going to happen with Bijan. I know what's going to happen. They're going to stack the box and they're going to key on trying to shut him down. To me, that's like I've progressed beyond where Anwar is, wondering if that's going to happen, to just basically cementing it in my mind that is what is. I mean, it's a lock that's going to happen. So to me, it's what does Casey Thompson do? How does he operate with a loaded box and maybe some opportunities and stuff there ahead of him? Some opportunities to throw the football down the field with maybe some lighter coverages and stuff like that, and how the protection holds up. Was Christian Jones hurt last week? He looks like he got rolled on a little bit at some point there in the second quarter. I wasn't sure, but man, with his balance and his positioning and some of the struggles he's had over at left tackle so far this season, I talked about it in my column on Monday, but the first thing I think about is that number 11, Benito. He's fast, he can speed rush, he can do some things. So how does the protection hold up? Not only there with Christian Jones at left tackle, or if they have Carrick at right tackle, he's got some good feet. He's probably a little bit better at handling the speed rush, but he's still he's still a redshirt freshman playing in his first Red River rivalry game. So it didn't like either of those matchups are ones that I'm particularly bullish on from the Texas side. So, how does Casey Thompson hold up under the face of some extra pressure against some of these loaded boxes, and can he take advantage?
Mr. Sukamel, same question.
Yeah, a lot of the same stuff. Obviously Bijan, Texas goes as Bijan goes, but Oklahoma's got a really good run defense. I mean, Bijan's obviously not sneaking up on anybody at this point, so they're gonna do whatever they can to take that away. So I think Casey Thompson's arm is gonna have to make some plays to win this game for Texas. Like Anwar said, Bijan's probably not going to carry it 35 times. If he does, that's good for Texas because they're playing from ahead. You know, you've seen teams try to keep Oklahoma's offense off the field with these kind of slow-paced, methodical drives where they're taking time off the clock early in the game, limiting their possessions. Is that what Texas will try to do? That kind of goes against Sark's MO. I mean, he wants to score quickly. So, but this may not be the best game to do that because Oklahoma can do the same right back to you. So a lot of interesting dynamics in this game. As always, like Alex said, it's always a great game, even when the teams aren't good, but it's a hell of a lot more fun when both teams are good. I look at it on paper, man, and I don't know. I mean, I actually have Texas favored in a lot of areas, and I broke down my matchups and posted them this morning. And I've got Texas with the slight advantage. I'm not completely sold on this Oklahoma team, but it's oh so close. Feels to me like a game where whoever runs the ball better is probably going to win the game, or if one team dominates on special teams or turnovers, obviously that's a game changer there. But yeah, it just should be a great game, man. I'm really excited to see it. Should be a good close game on paper is what I think. And whoever makes fewer mistakes and runs the ball better, I think gets the win. Can Casey Thompson do that in his first contest against Oklahoma? Man, you got to know. I know Casey says he doesn't get nervous and everything, but with just the magnitude of this game, with his ties to the Oklahoma program, so many cool storylines in this program. I'm just excited to see how it unfolds.
Jason, it's funny because ever since the Brennan Thompson, I've kind of been thinking this all week long, but ever since Brennan Thompson committed last night, we're recording this on Thursday morning, you can see that Texas is starting, after having no momentum there for a while this summer with the top guys, you can see where they've carved out some, and you're getting the Harold Perkinses of the world who are coming in and wanting to see the program. Cam Dewberry is a guy that you thought Texas maybe was really behind on, but maybe they still have a fighting chance with on some level. And like, he's still making attempts to check Texas out. It feels like such an opportunity for Texas. Like, it's the opportunity that exists for Texas. It's a different program coming out of Saturday. If they're on game day, they take on the one opponent that every recruit really wants. That's the game. You beat Texas, and everything Sark says in recruiting is a lot more believable for a lot of these kids. And, you know, there aren't a lot of games that Texas will play this year where everybody's watching. And look, if they win this week, suddenly they put themselves into a position next week where that Oklahoma State game is probably not the best game of the weekend, but probably the second best game of the weekend. So now all of a sudden it's a difference between putting yourself into hell, Anwar, we might start saying the P word if, you know, Mike Farrell was ranking one-loss teams earlier this week and had Texas up pretty highly. And so it's a reminder that just everything about what's being talked about with this program can change. And just from a recruiting standpoint, if they can beat Oklahoma, and this is a moment in the season where it looks like they're about to take off, it just feels like for as much 2023 recruiting as anything else, it just kind of cements that Texas belongs at the big boy table, as opposed to if they lose this game, they're back in the unranked and Arch Manning comes to town. And, you know, it's not that big of a deal, but you'd like Texas to be ranked and for that game to really matter while he's in town because of the spectacle of it all. But Jason, I just think that there's so much to be won. It's not devastating if they lose.
Right.
It's just a missed opportunity if they don't.
I wrote about that in my 3-2-1. At the very end, I said, hey, my first section was all about how much Texas has to gain. And you factor in, hey, what Texas is building, A&M's on a slide, potentially a 3-game slide. So, I mean, all the eyes are suddenly starting to shift towards Austin, and some of these recruits are saying, hey, okay, Texas is doing what we thought they might. I mean, we've talked about it so much about recruits taking a wait and see approach with this new staff. Well, now they're starting to see. And I think honestly, Catch, I said, even if Texas loses this game and it's a 31-30, 31-28 game, and it's exciting and they play well, I think Texas can still sell and still take that as a positive. You don't want moral victories, of course, if you're Texas, but you can still say, hey, look, man, we're a player or two away. We're a player or two away from winning that game.
College game days there, man. These are the kind of games that you want to play in. Yeah, right.
Yeah, come get us over the top. You win that game, man. Catch, you're right. Recruiting has a chance to take off like a rocket ship, especially, again, coincides with A&M sliding a little bit, LSU being down. Texas picked up a big commitment yesterday. You mentioned Brennan Thompson, the Rivals 100 receiver. There's signs from the Texas coaches, if you read in the tea leaves on Twitter, that maybe they've got another one that came in last night in the can. So we're still working to decipher that. So Texas suddenly has a lot of momentum heading into this week, and it's kind of a powder keg of positive momentum. If Texas can win this game on national television, game day, like Alex said, there are going to be a lot of big recruits in attendance, and everybody's going to be watching it on TV if they're not there. I mean, this thing can really take off for Texas. So huge, pivotal week. It's not catastrophic if Texas doesn't win. If they go out there and don't play well and get smoked, that's another discussion. But it is just a really big opportunity for Steve Sarkisian and this program to take a big step forward.
On more, all gas, no brakes.
Well, I mean, I guess I don't know where we're headed with that, but it's the interesting thing about it, as I was looking, you guys were talking, I was looking up some stuff, and Kat, you mentioned this in one of the podcasts, the YouTube videos that we did earlier this week, but Texas enters this game with the number one ranked offense in the Big 12. And OU, from a total offense perspective, is actually ranked fifth in the Big 12. Now, total defense, OU is fifth and Texas is eighth, which is somewhat crazy because I think Texas finished seventh last season. So that doesn't seem to be a huge increase or, as far as that's concerned. But from an offensive perspective, obviously led by, Bijan, because interesting from a passing offense perspective, OU is 2 and Texas is 8th. But from an overall just productivity standpoint, and we're talking about yards and accumulating yards, Texas technically has a better offense. It enters this game with a better offense than OU. And that's not something we're able to say too much. So if you want to go all gas, no brakes, in a game where you probably are, I'm not expecting a defensive struggle or defensive battle. I don't think this is going to be 13-10 or 24-17, anything crazy like that. I'm expecting a higher, a lot of scoring involved. This is a game that Texas goes in and has technically a better, or at least statistically a better offense than OU does.
Anwar, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but we did do a couple of these videos earlier in the week. I'm going to ask all three of you guys the same question, but if I say, which of the Texas run game or the OU run defense dictates the game more towards the other? I get the vibe you think this Texas run offense will dictate the game more to the Oklahoma run defense than the OU run defense will be dictating terms to this Texas running game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Texas has got 3 pretty good running backs. They've got one outstanding one who's a Heisman candidate. I think Roschon Johnson is sneaky good. I think he's got more wiggle now than I've seen him have before. He has added a little bit more speed. And then you have Keelan Robinson, who is kind of that wild card X factor at any point. So I think you have 3 pretty good guys. And so I think it's about how do you stop, that. And it's in talking about run, part of that is the scheming and kind of what happens beforehand, some of that pre-snap motion. And so now that you have, a guy like Bijan that was able to go out in the flats, you got to account for that. And that helps with the run game to know that he can actually go out and pass, in passing situations. So yeah, I would definitely think this is all about what Texas can do from a run perspective, more so than it's about OU stopping them.
Alex, what about you? Are you confident enough in this offensive line that you can go into this game feeling like Texas will be the one dictating the style and pace and how the game goes more so than what OU will do to Texas?
I mean, it's more about Bijan than it is the offensive line. He's such a creator. I mean, they'll run inside zone to the right, wherever, where his aiming point is. They'll be running inside zone to a 3 technique over on that side. So just picture it being like, picture his aiming point sort of an inside zone for his cutback being like the outside hip of the guard. Whenever he gets there, sometimes it's amazing. It's the damnedest thing to me. Sometimes he'll say, like, if he doesn't see a cutback lane or he doesn't see any open space, he'll just take it back around the whole backside of the thing. It's like, you've never seen a guy do this. And I've been having conversations with some people this week, just, because he's big and he's hard to tackle. But I mean, Bijan's fast, and he's sudden and he's elusive. And so even without the consistent blocking from the offensive line, I think that Bijan he's just such a creator. And here's the other thing too. Most of the issues the Texas offensive line has had this year have been in pass protection. They've not been as bad a run blocking unit as they have just with these dumb, blitz pickups and some of the stuff that we've seen. I'm sure, I don't know if we've talked about what happened versus TCU with Christian Jones and stuff, but we talked about the left side of the line and just the pass pro issues and stuff. And, Jake Majors was having pass pro issues, and it hasn't been as big they haven't been as bad of a run blocking unit. So I think if you're a pretty good run blocking unit and you got Bijan who can just create, I think that team's going to dictate terms to all but the best defensive fronts in college football. And I know that, Catch, you said that Oklahoma's got one of the best run defenses. I don't know those exact numbers, but I certainly, I don't think of a Big 12 team as just having one of the most staunch run defenses in all of college football. And I do think that that's what it would take to really, really shut down a guy like Bijan Robinson and an offensive line that, as far as the run blocking aspect goes, is operating at an above average level.
Just real quick, I want to stay with you, Alex. When Bijan didn't get off against Arkansas, right? So they neutralized him, and he wasn't really a factor in that game. I think he averaged 3 yards per carry. Was Texas run blocking well, or like what happened in that game, just to review, that you wouldn't think would translate to this game?
Well, it's just, all right. So in the first 2 series in that game, Texas allowed for one, Texas was doing a bunch of draw concepts in that game. As I'm looking at this right now, stuff we haven't seen since Arkansas. But if you just look, they started out running more power than usual as well. They had Jake Majors give up a TFL in the first series, running power. They had Denzel Okafor give up a TFL in the second series, running inside zone. Denzel Okafor on the very next play gave up a sack. You get to the very next series, the second play of the next series, Jake Majors gives up a sack. He gave up a TFL the first play of the very next series. So when I look at this thing, they started out, I think they got off on the wrong foot. They ran too much draw. They got away from running inside zone. And in their first 4 series of the game, they gave up 3 TFLs and 2 sacks. And I just don't think an offense operating like that's going to be anything that helps with the confidence or with the flow of a runner of any stripes, whether he's as good as Bijan or, whoever else. I think with these guys, you got to get going with the flow of the game. That game started off as an absolute miserable mess as far as what the offensive line was trying to do. It didn't really correct itself through the course of the game, but certainly if you look at it, I think starting out with the kind of different concepts than you're used to, getting off to a tough start, giving up all that disruption, things just went off the rails.
Jason, how did you grade this matchup going into the game in your matchups column?
Give the edge to Texas, just 1 star, rank them 1 through 5. Mostly, like Alex said, because of Bijan, though. This is a really good Oklahoma run defense. They've allowed 1 100-yard rusher in their last 18 games. That was Breece Hall last year. So, they do a good job of taking your run game away, but Texas knows it's going to have to run the ball well. Bijan's going to have to be a key point. So I expect them to try to force that issue a little bit. I don't think Bijan's going to put up huge eye-popping numbers, but I think Texas should be able to run the ball effectively. I actually like, kind of like what Alex said, I like the way the run the offensive line's been playing of late, more in run blocking than pass protection. So I gave Texas the slightest edge. And to me, if you're picking one area that's going to determine the outcome of this game, it's probably Texas's run game versus Oklahoma's run defense. If one team, I think it'll probably be a back and forth, but if one team dominates that, if Texas comes out and runs for 200 yards, Texas is going to win this game. If Oklahoma shuts Texas down to 60 yards rushing in the game, then Oklahoma is going to win this game. If it's somewhere in the middle, then probably other elements are going to determine the outcome. But yeah, to me, that yeah.
No, do you have a number in mind? You just said you started throwing numbers out, and that's where my head was.
Yeah.
If Texas runs for 200 yards, you think they win?
Oh yeah, I think if Texas runs the ball, I mean, they're playing for 200 yards. They're playing from behind. Bijan's probably averaging, 5+ yards a carry. So yeah, I think
what's the worry number
as a team rushing?
Yeah. If they rush for 150 as a team on Saturday, is that good enough?
I think 150 is probably good enough.
I think so.
Yeah, I would think 150. I think probably 125 would be maybe my cutoff. I think 150 is good enough. And especially, it kind of goes back to, I'd be curious, Anwar mentioned the numbers about the Texas offensive rating and Oklahoma's offensive ratings. And I'd love to see, and I haven't watched every possession of Oklahoma football this year, but I talked to a couple Oklahoma people this week, and they said, what other teams have done is they've really taken the ball out of Oklahoma's hands where they've had limited possessions each game. I'd love to see those numbers like per possession or maybe per play. What is Oklahoma averaging versus the rest of the conference? But, when you look at it statistically overall, yeah, this is not the high-powered dominant Oklahoma offense we're used to seeing. But I think it's probably still pretty efficient if you're basing it on per possession, because they're just not getting as many possessions. Teams are doing everything they can to keep the ball away from that offense. So can Texas do the same thing? Can they run the ball effectively? Can they do the opposite of what Alex said they did versus Arkansas, put themselves in second and longs, or, when you're losing yardage on tackles for loss or sacks, it kind of takes you out of rhythm. You got to dig a little deeper in your playbook. So it's going to come down to that offensive line. It's going to come down to Bijan running the ball effectively, Texas running the ball effectively, especially on early downs. If Texas can do that, I think they win this football game.
Jason, just to answer your question, time of possession, OU is ranked 6th in the Big 12 at 30-18. Texas is at 3rd, but it's at 30-54.
Okay, so pretty close. Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Anwar, if I say, give me a wild card X factor, a player in this game for the Longhorns, outside of the obvious, like who would be a sneaky, when this game is over, we'll be talking about this player?
Okay, so you're saying outside of Casey Thompson? Is you consider him the obvious?
It's not quite. I want to have a Casey Thompson conversation here in a second. Okay, I think he's too obvious.
Well, then I'll have to go Xavier Worthy.
Okay.
I'll go Xavier Worthy as kind of that, I guess, be super corny, the X factor. But he's a guy that last game didn't have a great game. And they need that big play presence, and not having him to be able to, he's their most explosive receiver. Jordan Whittington had some good catches, but when you talk about who's going to get it, take it to the house at any moment, Xavier is that guy. So how he rebounds from what happened last week and what he does this week, I think that's kind of, for me, like the sneaky thing, because if he's getting off and he's that Xavier that we saw a few weeks ago, then all of a sudden, everything changes as far as his entire team is concerned. The couple of issues is, one, he's got to rebound, and two, to what Alex is saying, offensive line has got to be able to block and make sure that Casey isn't on his ass every single play or doesn't have time to, operate. And of course, we'll have a Casey Thompson conversation about him hitting on a deep ball. But for me, I'll start with Xavier.
Alex, what about you? Got anybody off the top of your head that is kind of a sneaky, game changer for Saturday?
Yeah, well, you know what? Coming into this game, I was kind of thinking the antithesis of what I usually think. I was kind of thinking it could be the tight ends, just because if if they are bringing these extra outside linebackers, these extra nickel guys and stuff that could open things up for these guys, Jared Wiley, Cade Brewer, they're both pretty. I mean, they can both catch. They're both pretty trusty as far as catching the football. It seems like in these kinds of games, we've seen those kinds of weapons. The Quan Cosby games, stuff like that. Your trusty receiving weapons you can go to, you can dump it off to get away from pressure. But if they do keep those guys in with Christian Jones struggling, with Carrick struggling, not struggling, but being so new and being in this first experience, maybe if they keep those guys in at H-backs, I would say that just in a similar fashion, just out of the slot, Jordan Whittington, could take advantage and exploit some of those similar matchups. So you figure if they're pinning their ears back and they're coming hard, they're gonna be locking down the outside guys. They're gonna be locking down Ward, certainly Worthy. But if there's any little open spots or creases or crevices in that zone that Whittington could kind of wiggle into and get open, we know what he can do with the ball in his hands, and I think that he could be a real X factor.
Jason, give me yours.
I'm going a little bit different, man. I'm going to say Christian Jones. I think offensive line for Texas is going to be a big determining factor of this game. They're run blocking, obviously, but they're going to have to protect too and give Casey some time to take some shots downfield off of play action. So I'm gonna start with him, and then I think somebody on that defensive front's going to have to step up, be it Tavondre Sweat or Ovia Gofu. Somebody, they're going to have to pressure Spencer Rattler. You can't let him sit back there and be comfortable. But so I'll start with kind of 50-50 on those two. But if I'm picking one person catch, I'm going with Cameron Dicker. Man, I think this game comes down to maybe a field goal, a special teams play. Him being so vital in Texas special teams as a kicker and as a punter, I'm going with Cameron Dicker as being the X factor. If he plays well and he comes through in the clutch, I think this might come down to a last-second kick. I think it has the potential of being one of those types of games. So if I'm picking one, I'm going Cameron Dicker.
Nobody's taken my guy, and that may mean that I'm just wrong.
We've named damn near everybody. So
Keelan Robinson's the guy for me that I keep wondering. He feels like a guy that should get more work. And I hate to say that would mean fewer carries for Bijan, right? Like Texas has a weird thing going on at running back, but that guy does things to teams with his speed. When he comes on in the second half and he's fresh and opposing defenses are dragging just a little bit, it almost seems unfair. And I wonder if there's a third quarter Keelan Robinson moment that maybe he gets 8 carries in this game, right? Not a ton, but maybe he gets between 6 and 8, and one of those 8 ends up being a monster that makes him forever remembered in this game.
Hey, catch him real quick. That's a good pick. Oklahoma last week really struggled on playing screens out of the backfield and things like that. So that could fit right into Keelan Robinson's skill set. If Oklahoma's being overly aggressive, that's a good pick. Yeah.
Well, and look, Bijan's only averaging 2 catches a game. I think he's the third leading receiver on the team with 10. I think he's tied for third. But this could be a game where I also think 5 balls to. If the running backs catch 10 passes this week, that might not be a terrible thing. If 5 of them are to Bijan and Keelan gets a couple, and suddenly, I think that's an element of this offense that maybe Texas hasn't shown a ton yet of. But I don't know. Anwar, let's have the Casey Thompson discussion. You and I talked earlier this week. It's such a unique story. I mean, in the history of college football, this thing amongst rivals like this doesn't happen all the time. What are your expectations for Casey? How well do you think he plays?
He was at such a fiery pace where, at one point he was converting on damn near every, whether it's a touchdown or a field goal for most of the season, so and then I think things slowed down a little bit versus TCU. I expect him to rebound versus OU. I still think TCU is just a tricky team. They like I said in a previous YouTube thing, this is a defense of Gary Patterson that would give Sam Ehlinger fits every single year. I mean, that's just what Gary Patterson does. That's just what TCU does. And they, for whatever reason, it's just that there's a Texas connection there. When they face Texas, it's just different. He puts a little bit more. He was holding back on certain things and certain looks just specifically for the Texas game. But I definitely expect him to get back to where he has been. I don't, certain things aren't sustainable, and I don't think it's sustainable that he's going to miss on every deep throw going forward. Like, it's there, it's close, and I think it's just a matter of time. I think that's one thing that Sarkisian keeps talking about, is that he goes, we're doing all this without that connection, and when we do get it, how it's going to be. And I think in that game, that atmosphere, and I think the one thing that'll help in a full stadium that they did not have last year, but will have this year. I think the one thing we see, no matter what, this Casey still is very calm throughout the game. You don't see him get rattled. Even when he makes mistakes, it's not a snowball effect. He may have a turnover, but it's not turnover after turnover after turnover. Like, it's not mistake after mistake after mistake. He's still calm enough to always right the ship. So I won't give you a number prediction at this moment, but I definitely think he starts looking more like the Casey Thompson we've seen. I think TCU will be the anomaly, and I think the other games will be the norm.
Alex, same question.
I just think that if there's ever if we're going to go with the narrative that Casey Thompson is a guy who plays his best when the lights come on, under the biggest stage, under the most radical circumstances and stuff. Here we are, college game day. Cotton Bowl, playing against your dad's alma mater. It's all there. It's like if Casey Thompson comes out when the lights come on, this is it, man. The lights are on. This is it. So I think he's gotten that first road game under his belt now. They managed to weather the storm. They have some confidence coming into this game. There's a lot to play for. There's all these recruits in the stands. God, man, he's got to know that Devon Campbell is going to be there, right? That's a big enough reason to play well.
Jason, any concerns about Casey? Last week, it feels like his performance last week's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. That what we normally do at Orangebloods is if there's either a good or bad quarterback performance, people freak out one way or the other based on what happened. Didn't happen this week. It's been, I don't know if it's a mulligan, but most of the reaction, I think, has been with confidence that isn't the real Casey Thompson, that it was just one of those days. There were some holds and some pass interference penalties and some things going on that could have made that day a lot better. Xavier Worthy, if he holds on to balls, like suddenly the quarterback rating goes up by that alone. Any concerns?
Not really. I'm pulling up his stats. He was 12 of 22. You mentioned he had a few drops. Could have been a lot more efficient if they hang on to those, but he also had a couple balls hit TCU defenders in the hands. So you kind of got to even those out a little bit. But I think, like Anwar said, I think when it's all said and done, TCU is going to be more the anomaly. Now, is he going to play like he did against Rice and Texas Tech? Probably not. I don't know if he'll ever duplicate what he did there. That was incredible. Or Colorado, certainly. But I would expect it to be more in the middle from what we saw at TCU in those other games I just mentioned, and probably the pendulum swings further back to the good than what he showed against TCU. Oklahoma's given up some plays in the passing game, so there should be some opportunities there. I think Casey Thompson will be just fine in this game. He's a guy that doesn't seem to get too bothered emotionally with, nerves and get too high and too low. So, I guess my one concern, if I had one catch, is that there were a couple times in that TCU game where, for whatever reason, maybe it's something TCU didn't look like they did anything crazy, but he didn't seem to see the field as well as we're used to, and he didn't see the linebacker kind of underneath coverage, and he kind of threw it almost right to the TCU defender where they ended up dropping it. So, I'm sure they've talked about that and worked on that, and I'm sure Sark has coached him up on that. Eliminate those kind of miscues. I think Casey Thompson will be just fine. So No, I really don't. To answer your question, I don't really have any concerns with Casey Thompson coming into this game.
Alex, before we move on from the Casey Thompson piece of the conversation and move into start edging closer to some parting shots, some guy by the name of Dan Weiner, I don't know if you may not have seen this because you were in the basement doing your digging, but he posted this passing direction chart of Casey Thompson. And if his numbers are correct, I mean, I don't know why he would have gone to all the trouble to do this and to be wrong. It shows that he and the Texas offense in general are in love with the middle of the field and don't use the left or the right boundaries hardly at all. For instance, this guy's numbers just with Casey Thompson shows that Casey's thrown as many balls in the intermediate between 10 and 20 yards over the middle of the field than he's thrown in either the left or right direction for the most part, whether it's deep, intermediate, short, behind the line of scrimmage. They love using the middle of the field. As teams get scouting reports and suddenly Casey Thompson's got a book on him that I think teams probably wouldn't have early on. Does that mean, does that mean anything to you? And B, I don't know that I've noticed with my naked eye that Texas was so middle of the field dominant. Have you noticed that? I mean, has that something that you've noticed about the passing game, is how much of it occurs between the hash marks?
Be honest, Catch, that's not anything that has really jumped off to me. You know, as you know, I don't chart pass direction and things like that. So I'm sure if that guy's numbers are right, I'm sure that at some point I would have said, wow. I mean, if it really is like what you're saying, because that doesn't seem intuitive to me. And if other teams are getting those scouting reports on it, all the better for Casey Thompson, because he is just fine to drive the ball to the sidelines, whether it's to the near side, whether it's to the field, whether it's to the boundary, he can drive it outside. So if they're going to be doing things to try and keep him from exploiting that middle of the field, I think that he would be just fine. I don't know if it's been a matter of circumstance. We're only talking about a 5-game sample, so I'd be interested to see if that keeps up. I'll have to look at that chart though. That chart.
I'll send it to you. It's interesting. It just has all the field broken into quadrants.
And they're bigger plays. It seems like hitting even Worthy a couple times on slants where he caught it and ran, and Whittington did the same. So most of their big plays, I would have never guessed it to be that significant. I did see that graph that you sent, but a lot of their big plays, the ones that I remember when I think back over the course of the season, have been a lot of catch and runs over the middle of the field. So.
No, as soon as I saw it, I was like, yeah, they do like to run those little skinny posts and slants and things like. But I don't know that I've ever watched the game and it's been obvious to me. Anwar, have you noticed at all? Like it's interesting data to look at, but I do have to confess, up until I saw the data, I've never thought to myself, Texas sure doesn't like to throw the ball to the left a lot. But when you look at the data, it's like, oh, they really don't throw the ball to the left a lot.
I don't know. Offense seems to be productive.
If they could only throw the ball to the left, Anwar.
I mean,
what do they always say about
we're
Tom Brady?
getting to like the nitpicking stage, right? I mean, it's like, it's interesting. It's an interesting thought process, but at the end of the day, outside of the TCU game where, they were scoring, they was nearly scoring on every possession that Casey Thompson was the quarterback. So I guess I don't really have too many thoughts on it other than interesting data. I'm not quite sure how to apply it when the offense is pretty much been productive.
It was like those
Thompson.
old Josh Daniels, Tom Brady teams where people would say like they only use the middle of the field, and you'd be like, all right, we'll go stop it. Right?
Well,
correct.
And what's crazy is I think Casey's success is where Sam struggled the most. So when you look at these numbers, Casey, from an NFL efficiency number, he's almost perfect this year when he's throwing the ball between 10 and 20 yards. And that doesn't matter which side of the field he's going to. This Casey Thompson, as an intermediate thrower of the football, has been elite of the elite of the elite. And they're just weird little pockets of the field where I don't think the sample size is that large. But to Anwar's point earlier, talking about the deep ball, if he's going to stay that good in the middle, if they're going to do that well, throwing that intermediate ball, if the big deep ball ever comes, I mean, Sarkisian's right. The offense at that point, the top really does have a chance to explode off of the offensive if and when they get that chemistry and that connection with whichever players it happens with to finally go down.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Well, we'll find out this weekend.
Maybe so.
Any other thoughts on the game before we go into parting shots?
The only thing I'll bring up, and I've said this a little bit before, but I'll bring it up for our purposes here. Like, the interesting part, I think, that of this game is going to be really having the stadium full again. It's having the Cotton Bowl full again. Was at a fourth capacity last year. And, Alex, you guys have been there. I mean, it's something totally different when the whole stadium is packed and that place is rocking. I mean, it was an okay atmosphere, but it wasn't the same. So for people, what'd be very interesting, Texas went into Arkansas was a much more hostile environment than TCU was. Like, TCU was a road game. Arkansas was hostile. This game will be a hostile environment, at least on one side of it, but they'll still feel it. They'll still have it. So it'll be interesting for guys on this team who have never had the chance to experience it. This will be their first chance to experience it. Sarkisian, even though he's played in rivalry games before, this is his first time. This is entire staff, their first time being a part of that. And, they're going to have to make sure they don't get caught up in the emotions of, what that whole atmosphere is. So one, glad that we're back to it. But two, going to be interesting to see how some folks who've never experienced it, how they handle it.
Mr. Dunlap, any parting shots before we go into, or do anything you want to get into before we do parting shots?
No, I'm just looking at this passing chart you sent. That's wild. Yeah, Onward. I mean, if you get a chance to ask Sark today, I'm not sure. Like I said, man, I've been doing the deep dig all week. If you can ask him, man, if Josh Thompson's going to play this week, if somebody can ask about that. I'm not sure if he addressed it or not, but I feel like that.
He said he was coming back.
He said he's coming back on Monday. He said on Monday he addressed it.
All right, so that'll be. That was just one of the last thing about the game that I thought could be, somewhat meaningful to kind of.
We haven't talked about the Texas defense at all. I mean, that matchup against an OU offense that's got great personnel in the skill positions, but has not clicked at all this season the way that you'd expect an Oklahoma offense to go. Does anybody think Oklahoma doesn't score 30 points this weekend? I know Anwar, when we did a video on Monday, indicated he thought this game might take 40 to win. Right, Anwar? Didn't it?
Yeah, that's what I think.
It was 40-ish.
I'm not expecting defense to show up in this game. So, I mean, maybe you guys are, but I'm not expecting it.
So does everybody think Oklahoma's going to get theirs and then it just comes down to execution fourth quarter? Like, what do we think is how this game plays out, what the point total needed to score is? What's the flow got to look like?
I think these defenses show up. I think these defenses show up to do what they can to thwart these offenses. I think it'll be a little bit more lower scoring.
Okay. You think Oklahoma scores 30, Alex?
I think they'll score around 30. I think both Oklahoma and Texas will score maybe right around 30. Yep.
Okay.
I've kind of gone back early in the week. I thought it was going to be a really low scoring game. I mean, I'm looking at Oklahoma's schedule. They scored 23 against Nebraska. They scored 16 against West Virginia. Now, they kind of got things right a little bit last week against Kansas State in Manhattan. So if you're a Texas fan watching this, and you probably are, I mean, that should be a little bit worrisome for you. You're like, okay, did they finally figure it out last week? And talking to Oklahoma people, they changed up their blocking schemes a little bit last week, which seemed to help out. They ran the ball better. They gave Spencer Rattler more time, which allowed him to play better. So early in the week, I was thinking lower score game. I think it's right around 30 is probably the winning point total. I'm not quite where Onwar is at with 40, but initially I was thinking 24-23 type game early in the week. But then I'm like, okay, I think Oklahoma's kind of started to find their rhythm. I think Texas is going to bounce back from last week. So I think right around that 30-point mark is probably where my bar would be set.
Real
The only
quick,
thing I'll say is that this defense is currently ranked 8th in the Big 12. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I think it, I hear, that's why I say I hear 30, but I mean, we're talking about only 2 other spots before you're dead last. And this is a defense
I don't think of this defense, and I hear you because I look at those Big 12 stats every week. So I just don't think of this defense as being that bad. I mean, yes, they kind of gave up versus Arkansas. They gave up some big plays versus Texas Tech that really didn't matter. I kind of feel when this defense is dialed in and mentally focused, it's a much better defense than what the statistics show. Now, the problem is it's had mental lapses, including several versus Texas Tech. But this, to me, feels like a game where this Texas defense will be mentally dialed in for the full 4 quarters. No, I hear you on where I know the stats and I look at them every week. I'm like, man, it's not a good defense against the run or the pass. It's not like, oh, well, they're just horrible against the pass, so that's skewing the stats. No, it's a pretty, subpar defense statistically in both areas. But I do think in a weird kind of way, I think it's better than what the statistics show. Am I the only one that kind of feels that way? I don't know.
No, because it's just the way the Texas matches up. I'll talk about it in my prediction, but I mean, Texas is bad in a lot of categories, but one where they're at least middle of the pack. They're in the 40s as far as their third down conversion percentage allowed, whereas Oklahoma is number 114 in the nation on third downs. This game's going to come down to whether Oklahoma can convert on their third downs, or whether Texas can keep that being as one of the one feathers that this defense does have in its cap is it's been kind of good there, and that's matching up against a really, really, really big weakness so far for Oklahoma.
I have one guy for Oklahoma that I think isn't getting enough talk going into this game because I don't trust this Texas defense really, just not enough playmakers. And I'm a little worried about Luke Brockermeyer in this game. Alex, I think you'll enjoy this. This is since 1956. These are the NCAA career leaders for yards per carry in their career. Some really interesting names on this. I would not have guessed this in a million years, but I think the exercise of walking down memory lane is somewhat interesting. Darrell Henderson, who played at Memphis in the NFL right now, 8.2 yards per carry, all-time best in the history of NCAA. Chuck Weatherspoon from Houston. I don't know if any of you guys remember him during the air raid Andre Ware teams.
Bowling ball runner, wasn't he?
Oh my God. He was like just one little 240-pound ball of muscle. 8.2 yards per carry. Melvin Gordon, number 3 on the list, 7.8 yards per carry.
With volume too.
Yeah.
That wasn't like a Darrell Henderson. That was with a ton of volume. That's
cool. Some kid named Devin Johnson from Marshall, 7.8 yards per carry, graduated in 2015. How about this one? Felix Jones at Arkansas, 7.7 yards per carry. I think we forget what a freaky beast he was in the SEC. Ty Johnson from Maryland. And look, you had to have over 300 rushing attempts to make the list.
Tom Herman and Todd Orlando forgot him.
Yeah. Ty Johnson, 7.6, almost all of that against Texas. Rashad Penny, number 7, 7.5. Greg Pruitt, the Oklahoma great who graduated in 1972 and played in, what was it, with the Bengals or the Browns? I can't remember which team he played for a long time, but Greg Pruitt, 7.5. Javid Best from California, 7.3. Reggie Bush is number 10 at 7.3. Number 11 on the list, Kennedy Brooks from Oklahoma, 7.3 yards per carry. He has somehow, and he always plays well against Texas, and I'm a little worried that a guy who's 6 games into his season and is as good as he's been hasn't had a real breakout game. So just mark.
Had a 100-yard rusher yet. Him nor Gray have rushed for 100 yards yet in the game.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't they have Eric Gray now too?
Yes. And look, Kennedy Brooks is a guy that's got 2 1,000-yard seasons under his belt. He's been incredibly productive. I worry that this is. I wonder if it's when it's all said and done, both of these teams rush for a lot of yards, and I'm curious to see how this thing plays out. But I wanted to. Ari Temkins sent me those stats earlier today because we were talking about the run games going against each other. By the way, the rest of the top 15, Travis Et. How do you say his last name?
Just E.T.
Etienne. Yes, I always mess that up. Dry Archer, Kajana Carter, and Mike Rozier. So a real weird collection of Heisman winners and all-time great players and some fairly obscure names as well. But Kennedy Brooks is a guy that I wonder if he goes for 150 in this game, and we hadn't said his name hardly all week long. Let's go into parting shots. Jason, I know you got a lot of recruiting stuff that you can lean into with the Brennan Thompson commitment and everything going on that. So I'm going to let you lead everybody off on parting shots today.
Yeah, I'll start with that. Brennan Thompson commits to Texas on Wednesday night. Catch, you and I did an analysis video on that, so people can find that. But big pickup for Texas. Rivals 100 receiver, speed receiver, exactly what Steve Sarkisian wants in his offense. Texas needs receiver help in this recruiting class. Armani Winfield's the other receiver commitment. Well, lo and behold, I just discovered he actually visited Michigan State last weekend unofficially. He's already visited there officially. So I did talk to Armani this weekend. He tells me he's solid, or this week, I'm sorry. He tells me he's solid with Texas, and he's probably not taking any more visits. But that's what he also said before he visited LSU. So just something to keep an eye on. But Texas did kind of stock the cupboard a little bit with Brennan Thompson. The big news as we record this, I mean, it started popping up late last night. Texas, again, if we're reading between the lines, and I'm still deciphering exactly who, I've got my ideas, but I'm pretty sure there's another commitment going to pop. So Texas has some good news coming. I don't know 100% certainty who it is. Again, I've got my ideas. I've kind of poked around. I've asked some questions, but I haven't been told specifically, hey, it's this guy at this time. But, that's something I'll be digging on. So exciting times for Texas Longhorn recruiting fans. Good news this week. I think they've got more on the way. And as we discussed earlier in this modcast, if they can capitalize on a big opportunity this weekend in Dallas, come out of that game with a big win, well, my keyboard may be burning up over the next couple of weeks writing commitment stories. So exciting times. Texas is certainly trending in the right direction with a lot of guys. In fact, I was going to try to do my recruiting board this week, and I'm going to push that back and do it next week, where I for those who aren't familiar, I break down all the top players on the Texas board. I put their percentages of what I think Texas's odds are, and then I put whether or not they're trending up or down. The overwhelming majority of those guys, if I was to do it right now, and this week's game could change things, certainly, but if I was to do it today, the overwhelming majority of those odds would be trending up, and probably up in a significant way. So good things on the horizon for Texas. They've got to keep that momentum going with a good game this weekend.
Mr. Dunlap, give us a good parting shot. By the way, should I ask you if you have a rant? Because you triggered me last week. So I need to make sure, I need to see if I need to put a ball on a tee for you.
I gotta keep myself keep myself calm and relaxed, dude. I felt like last night I was fighting off some kind of sickness, so I don't want to put my body under any kind of stress. And that'll be my parting shot to everybody. Well, for one, golly, man, if you see Devon Campbell at the game and you're a Texas fan, just make sure and wave high, shoot him a hook, whatever you can to help. Boy, man, that's a program changer if that guy stays happy with Texas. I would just say, from all the Red River rivalries that I've been to, the times that I got the most hungover and I had the worst time after the games were the times when I drank a bunch of beer, but then I also, for one, didn't eat enough good. Not just, none of the food there is good for you, good food, nutritional food, but not enough food that sticks to the old ribs, your corn dogs, your sandwiches, your Jack's fries, stuff like that. If you go there and you drink a bunch of beers and you end up eating a bunch of these fried Twinkies and fried Oreos, or you get the funnel cakes, with the peanut butter and the fudge and stuff on top. Sugar, I think, is what makes you have the worst hangover of anything. And I remember one time whenever I came home to the hotel, after one of these early games, and I got so drunk at the game. Texas lost miserably. It was one of these games I was back in college, and I ate a bunch of fried Twinkies and fried Oreos and stuff like that. And I remember thinking when I was back at the hotel, so hungover later on in the night, this wouldn't have happened if I would have just been drinking, just on its own, just drinking and just eating the regular food. It was all that sweet stuff that I ate that was the stuff making me want to puke and giving me the worst headache. So keep that in mind. Don't go too overboard with all these sweets. Have your fun, but you don't want to get as hungover as I've been at times after that fair.
Hungover tips from the state fair from Alex Dunlap.
The word to you college students: get drunk, don't eat sweets, and you'll be just fine.
No, he's just saying get lots of corny dogs with mustard and ketchup that you can dip into your beer cups, but don't eat 18 funnel cakes. Otherwise, Sunday will be rough, right?
Yes. Saturday night will be rough.
Anwar, any parting shots? I kind of feel like Alex weirdly just dropped a weird little mic.
All right, I have a 30-second rant, and then I have a football parting shot. My 30-second rant, I've been holding on to this for the longest of times, but I absolutely love HEB. I think it's God's gift to all of us. And as a person who has lived in many different states, including the great state of Florida, HEB makes Publix look like a Dollar General, okay? So I love it. What I hate, though, is the people who park in the family parking spaces for people supposed to have kids in the front. Those people who don't have kids and just park there because they're lazy, I can't stand you. As a person who has 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, and you're filling up a spot, and just because you're too lazy to walk back, and now I have to take my kids and get them out of car seats and make sure they don't dart in and out of freaking traffic because they're playing around, and my damn little 3-year-old wants that little cart, the little race car cart that doesn't hold anything, but he wants to sit in that stupid thing, so I have to put him in the little race car one and then stack on stack on stack because his shit doesn't hold anything, but he wants to be in this stupid thing. So anyway, but those of you who park there when you're parking illegally, and I know you're lazy, because if it was a handicap, then you would get a handicap sticker. And I have no problem with you having a handicap sticker. But when you just park there because you think it's open or you're not paying attention, you do a disservice to those of us who are parents, who are trying to just get our damn kids in and out of that damn HEB within a reasonable time frame.
What if you have kids back home?
Yeah, what if it says parents with children?
Yeah.
Yes.
Technically, what if Alex and I are rolling up in an SUV?
That's what I think.
We both have kids.
So you're
The
the asshole that parks there when you don't have your kids. What you're saying. You rationalize this in your head. You're that person. You're like, well, I have kids. What if I have fur babies? What if I have, those are technically my kids too, right? I have 2 puppies at home. I should be able to do that. No, take your ass and park back there just like everyone else. And let all of us who have children get them out the car seat. How about that? If you don't have children actively in your car seat or a booster seat, take your ass and park them back there. How about that? Not if you have 16-year-olds.
I'm cool with it as long as you promise to always return your cart, which is my giant pet.
Oh, that's a pet peeve of mine too, Alex. Oh my goodness.
Oh, you mean like the people just throw it to the side?
Yeah,
Or leave it in an empty parking spot.
I've said when I've gone looking at houses and stuff, I'll go to the neighborhoods and I'll be like, take me to the grocery store. And I can tell whether this neighborhood's a piece of trash or not by how many carts people have left out by their cars without putting
What a very
So now I'm just gonna look from now on. Every HEB parking lot I go into, I'm gonna be like, is this a good neighborhood or not?
All right, here's my last one though, just football related. I know we talked about a big game. You talked about the big thing from a recruiting perspective, but Jason, some of the things I was thinking about, when you think about Texas and recruiting, A&M is clearly taking some losses and taking their lumps, and they're going to probably take a lump against Alabama this upcoming weekend. If Texas beats OU, that clearly in a recruiting head-on can potentially help them. Ohio State lost earlier to Oregon. Sarkisian could give guys a good reason to come to Texas to not necessarily go to Texas A&M or Ohio State. Like he could literally say like, hey, we've got a lot of good things going. Look at all these other programs. They're kind of struggling a little bit. Clemson is struggling, obviously, at this point. And you can be able to say, hey, but look at us. We're on the rise. This is the place to be. So another thing to factor into this Red River game.
My parting shot, Ashley Furniture still not coming through the way I need them to. Just FYI, for those of you wanting an update on the Ashley Furniture crisis, kids still don't have bunk beds. And like that company just sucks.
It's Ashley Furniture, though. You should have low expectations. I mean,
I did. They've surpassed my low expectations.
I mean, you should. It probably goes like Big Lots, Ashley, Rooms to Go, from like the bottom tier of places you should ever buy furniture from.
I kind of like Rooms to Go. I don't buy a lot of stuff there.
Buy something for them. Look at their reviews. Buy something for them and see how much you like them. You're
saying suddenly I might like Ashley Furniture a lot more.
No, you're not gonna like any of them, but these are like the 3 bottom dwellers, I believe.
Fair enough.
Unless you want to be a sponsor, into which case we would tell you that Ashley Furniture, we love you. And so
hey, one of these days I'll have my kids will have Ashley Furniture bunk beds, and we'll just focus on the bunk beds before they fall apart in 6 months.
Be teenagers at that point.
Yeah, no, I know. Look, for myself, Jason, Alex, Anwar, we've got some other stuff we've got to do today. Anwar's got Sark around the corner. Thank you for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon. Later.